Thanks so much for taking the time. I'm curious, as you're watching this, okay, so Kevin McCarthy, there he is. He's obviously confident right now. I think Matt Gaetz not saying anything when he had the chance to vote is an indicator as well. McCarthy seems very confident. You've advised a lot of top politicians. I'm curious, what would you be advising Matt Gaetz right now and the group that stood up against Kevin McCarthy and also Kevin McCarthy?
I'd be advising, and thanks very much, it's great to be here. I would be advising Matt Gaetz to, if he is still against McCarthy, just to vote present, because they did get everything they wanted. They set out with a list of demands, and it felt like over the last several days that they kept voting no, even though they were getting most of what they wanted, but they wanted even more. So, that's what I would do if I were him. Voting yes, I think, after everything he said about McCarthy, about selling shares of the speakership, would really look hypocritical that he actually got his shares sold by McCarthy to him. If I was McCarthy, you just keep doing what you're doing. Grind this thing down so that you can get the speakership, get the votes, and be patient. He had to endure, so many failed speaker ballots, which is frankly if it didn't go this way over today, if it didn't have this momentum today, I think he would have had a huge problem and a revolt among the conference with his Republican colleagues. So his predictions have been correct that it's slow and steady. What matters is the end result. He was right, but I'll tell you, this has been a nail biter for many Republicans. Lots of Republican members were really ticked off, and frankly are still rather unhappy about the sacrifices that have been made for the 20 versus the will of the 200. Let's put it that way.
So I'm curious, Ron, with a lot of political experience, having said what you just said, looking like there were two teams here, right? There was the Matt Gaetz and the never Kevins. And then there's Kevin McCarthy, who did this in public. Our political director, Rick Klein, said real smart move so that everybody could see him doing this and eventually winning as he thought he was going to. You have these two camps. At the end of the day, it's all under the Republican tent. Who do you think wins? Who do you think wins this battle? The never Kevins or Kevin McCarthy?
Well, Kevin McCarthy wins because he's now Speaker. He got exactly what he wanted. From now on, he'll be described as a Speaker of the House in American history. I think that's what he's looking for. There are lots of strings to this deal, but that's what he wanted. And also, in the end, these 20 members did win and did get everything they wanted. They're going to hold their heads up high. And, when you get down to these tough votes and these tough negotiations, get ready. Because these 20 members, many of them, are going to be back in the national spotlight, holding things up. Everyone is when you have such a small majority, small coalitions really matter here. But just as much so, if the Freedom Caucus members, some of these folks, are in agreement, but there are members of the moderate side of Republicans, which are a sizable bloc, decide that they don't like this deal. They can hold up the legislation too. I think we're going to see very slow grinding House, only producing few pieces of legislation this year, and it is going to be very difficult to get things done. In the end, not much is going to pass Congress anyway because there's a Democratic Senate as well as a Democratic president. So I don't think they're going to be subscribing to Republican GOP views no matter what comes out of the House. So this platform is going to be used by House Republicans more focused on 2024 more than anything else. But it's going to be such a hard slog for Kevin McCarthy and the Republican leadership to keep people on board. This is like herding cats who have drank a lot of caffeine.
That's a new one, Ron. Herding cats.
Yeah, I don't know where I came up with that. Yeah.
Drink a lot. Well, it's good. I think it's apropos. The assessment you just made, I think most Americans would kind of roll their eyes and say, "Oh my goodness," as if things couldn't get any slower. Now we're going to have this sort of sluggish House. How do you think the Republicans get past this very public, ugly debate? It's not like the Never Kevins are going to go away. Looks like they've given in. We don't know yet, but it appears to be that they've given in. They're still part of the Republican Party, and as you point out, they can still do a lot of damage to Kevin McCarthy and his speakership. So how do the Republicans hold a united front after this?
Yeah, right away, when the Republicans take control now officially of the chamber and get moving, they already have legislation, ready to go that most Republicans are going to likely vote for that have to do with reducing inflation or taking on China. There will be a lot of legislation up front right away that really lays a good foundation. It's the issues that are going to be a little bit later on, which are coming up sooner rather than later, like raising the debt ceiling and spending bills and the funding for Ukraine. Those type of things are going to be bigger debates. But right away, I think in the next month, you're going to see much more Republican unification around momentum of legislation that most Republicans aren't going to have a problem with. But when we get to the big ones, that's when it's going to be really, we're gonna watch some. It's just going to be a roller coaster ride for the next couple of years.
This week we saw Democrats obviously pretty thrilled with what they were seeing. I saw one tweet of popcorn, just kind of like they're sitting back eating popcorn watching this. They consistently nominated Hakeem Jeffries. In having said what you said, do you see any room? It's tough enough for the Republicans to unify themselves right now. Do you see any room for bipartisanship in this Congress, the 118th?
I think it's going to be very few and far between pieces of legislation that get bipartisan agreement. It's going to be revolving. Those type of agreements probably revolve responding to national disasters or emergencies in our country. I could see bipartisan legislation, for instance, on spending on the Ukraine. By maybe a smaller block of Republicans, but by and large, the Democratic House members don't want Republicans to be successful here. That's why they brought in the popcorn, just letting these folks, let them dig their own hole, and enjoy it, because this is sort of a Game of Thrones for the Democrats. They want to see the Republicans fall flat on their face and get that majority back, because it's such a small, slim one.